already know, girl.
Money in the air as Mo feel. Grab you by your coat.
Well, the Young Turks, I gotta tell you something. I'm in a good mood. It's a little pre-Christmas, but boy, am I ready for Christmas. And you know, my problem is that I love my job too much because we got great stories for you today. So I'm glad that we're on the job. Okay, we don't let these stories slip by, not on our watch. All right, first of all, we have a story about, you know, if you thought Republicans were bad before, we got a local story that almost no one else has, coming out of, what is it, North or South Carolina, where a Republican said something so terrible to a Democrat, you almost can't quite believe it. Okay, now, that's going to be fun. And then in the third hour, we got robber Santa knocking down banks left and right. We got a guy who's forcing his kid into having sex with a prostitute. And then we got silly Democrats and we got silly Republicans. It's Christmas season. It's Christmas season. Okay. But first, you know what I'm going to do? Let me tell you, start with a quick story here. It's nonsense, just having a little bit of fun. I come into the studio today, by my standards, way early. What was I here? 20 minutes early before the show? Which is like breaking all records, right? Because I read at home. I do a lot of my work at home, and then I pile up the stories and I run to the office, right? So I'm here, and so I decided to limp over with my busted-ass ankle and grab some snacks because I'm still a little hungry. A friend of mine took me out to lunch to celebrate. I don't know what we're celebrating, Christmas. I don't know. Anyway, but it was just light liberal food. So anyway, I need to go get some food. I limp over to the snack shop over there. First of all, there's no one here. I don't know if it's a Los Angeles thing. I don't know if it's all across America. But I mean, look at this. Christmas is on Friday. It's Wednesday afternoon. The roads are jam-packed with people going home. They're done. You get into the parking lot at work, no one's here. I'm going to make these guys work tomorrow. People are already gone. Christmas Eve, we're coming back. We're coming to your house. Come on, Jack, confess you like it. Confess you want to be here tomorrow night.
I'm still thinking about kind of bailing on you.
Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. All right. Now, the only guy that we're missing tomorrow, of course, is Jesus, because Jesus is obviously very busy Christmas Eve, so he couldn't be here.
No, wait. The only person missing tomorrow is Jesus.
Well, all right. Look, Anna and Andrew, the intern, and so it'll be me, you, and Dave. What more do you want? I mean, come on. All right. Anyway, so I limp over to the snack shop. And it's a Jewish guy running the place. He's got a Santa hat on. It's cute. I love it, right? So I'm joking around with him, but he doesn't quite get it. He's old school, right? And I'm like, all right, you win. I'll get a banana too. And he's like, what? I win? I'm like, all right, you got me. I'll get popcorn too. And he's like, how I got you? Anyway, I'm like, all right. Now you have to understand, I grew up with 1.5 million Jewish friends. I have more Jewish friends than there are people in the city of Tel Aviv, okay? So for some reason, I had a mental lapse there. And I was like, all right. Happy Yom Kippur. And he's like, like, what's with this guy? And then as that was going on, I'm like, oh, right, Hanukkah, sorry. He's like, okay. He thinks I'm a little mentally unstable. Can you imagine? Whereas, of course, I am the model of mental sanity. I'm feeling giddy today. You know what? Here, let's celebrate Christmas.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Giuliani. Rudy, down and out. Okay, now it was self-inflicted wound. Rudy said yesterday, that's it, he's not running for the Senate or the governor position in New York. Now that's a curious decision because right now polls have him beating Gillibrand in New York for the Senate seat. Now if you're not going to run in your home state for a Senate seat or the governor's seat, even when you're up in the polls, you know what that means? You realize, once you got out of politics, the money flows in. He's got security businesses, he's consulting this, making speeches there. He's comfortable, nobody's challenging him, et cetera, et cetera. Now, he gets back into politics, and they're going to come after him for his marriages. They're going to come after him for Bernie Kerik, who was his top guy, who's still rotting away in prison from corruption, et cetera, et cetera. And they're going to come after him for all these things and his dumbass policies. I mean, of course they're going to come after that too. He's like, who needs the headache, man? Down here in Florida having a good time. I'm rolling with my latest mistress/wife, whatever she happens to be at this point. I think she's turned into a wife. Okay, he's like, who needs the headache? So now that Rudy's not running for this, it's over. Rudy Giuliani wiped off the political map, because if he doesn't run for this, he ain't gonna run for nothing. Okay, so at least that's one loathsome Republican we don't have to deal with from now on. So Merry Christmas, everybody! Ho ho ho! And that's ironically what did Rudy in. The ho ho ho. That's not right. That's not right, especially because they weren't even hoes. They were just mistresses. Okay. So that's a little good news for Christmas. Sign of the times, unfortunate story about Christmas, and then we'll get to the attack against Barack Obama from the left. Uh-oh. Tim Jones is an English priest, and he gave a sermon the other day in England saying, you know what, shoplifting is sometimes okay. It depends on the circumstances. So, of course, he's taking a lot of heat for this, but he's a priest, and he said, look, here's the situation. Did I tell him go shoplift anywhere, anytime you like? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. On the other hand, these people are hungry, and they don't have a job, and the government's not helping them. No one's helping them. And if you say to me, weigh the hunger of your family next to, robbing a small item from a very large store, I say go for that. Now, the thing is, I don't agree with Tim Jones. You can't start down that slippery slope. And what if they get caught, and then they're in jail, and they're, of course, your family is much, much worse off, et cetera, et cetera. But I thought it was an interesting move, one, as clergy, to say, look, I don't care what the current law says. I don't care what Caesar says. My job is to help these people out. And he said, the government winds up helping those giant companies out plenty, but never gets down to these guys. And number two, I thought it was an interesting sign of the times. And you should know, what he told them is, don't rob from mom and pop stores. Go to the giant corporations. And only take as much as you need. If you take anything more than you need, then that's more. Is he not merciful? And I was like, you know what? As far as encouraging people to rob, which you shouldn't, that's as reasonable as it gets. He's trying to help in his own way. I don't think it's productive in the long run, but it's interesting that we've gotten to times where we've got clergy saying that. And it's tough all across the world and in England as well. So, by the way, of course, the church, everyone else, raining down holy hell on Tim Jones. Everybody demanding retractions, how dare you, et cetera, et cetera. No, the powers that be cannot be disturbed. Again, I don't agree with him, but I like that he rassled up their hornet's nest a little bit, and all the hornets came out. They're like, prophets above all else. Who the hell is this pastor? All right. Now, speaking of Christmas and prayers, Christmas prayers sometimes, I bet a lot of you have seen this already because it's been buzzing around the internet. It's fun for everybody. You know how Tom Coburn said, I hope one of the senators can't make it out tonight for the vote. Now, some people assumed he was talking about Robert Byrd, who's very ill, and the vote was going to be at 1 in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. Dick Durbin was outraged by that, and Coburn said he was praying and that everybody should be praying that one of the Democratic senators don't make it. Okay. Now, that seems like a fairly questionable thing to say. Senator Barrasso was on C-SPAN. He's also a Republican. And so caller decided to ask him about that. There's a question of whether this caller is serious or not. I don't think it's much of a question. There's no way he's serious. But it was very clever what he did. So let's watch. Did we not have that? Where is that? Be cool, everybody. Don't panic. Okay. Should we move on? Move on? Oh, okay, you know what I'll do? I got a perfect thing to fill in. Perfect thing. Everybody calm down. Was Coburn serious or not? Let's talk about that first, and then we'll go to what happened with Barrasso. That's clip number 8, Jesus. Coburn went on, and Fox News, of course, with Greta Van Susteren, And he's going to explain why he said, hey, I hope the senators don't show up. At the very end of this, there's a statement, Dick Durbin's original statement that JR added on. Okay, so first let's watch Coburn, clip number 8.
You've taken a lot of heat for a remark you made about prayer, and I don't know what the exact words are, but go ahead, fill in the blanks. Senator Durbin and others.
Well, first of all,
what do you say?
What the American people ought to pray is that somebody can't make the vote tonight. I wouldn't back away from that. I'd love for everybody's alarm clock that's for this thing not to work. You know, the fact is this is an epic change in our country. It's a reduction in freedom in our country. It doesn't reform health care. It just expands the mess that we have today. And it tells you a couple of things. They didn't want to talk about the bill. They want to talk about what somebody said.
I don't think it's appropriate to be invoking prayer to wish misfortune on a colleague. And I want him to clarify that. I've invited him. I've tried to reach out to him. He is my friend, and I have worked with him.
And I think in Senator Durbin's comments, what he said was, my friend. Well, if you think your friend said something that's inappropriate, you don't go blast him on the floor. You go say, what do you mean by that? I mean, that's a friend.
So I take you guys aren't friends, at least not today.
Well, no, he's still my friend. I would never do that to him. I'd go ask him what he meant before I'd go and blast him on the floor if I thought, and everybody knew that I wasn't as a physician, I wouldn't wish ill health on anybody. And they know that. But it's the politics of silliness that we get into in Washington.
I've been trying to reach Senator Coburn because he is on a committee that I serve on, and I work with him. This statement troubles me, and I'm trying to reach him to come back to the floor and explain exactly what he meant about a senator being unable to make the vote tonight. But I'm reaching out to Senator Coburn. I'll be on the floor in the next 45 minutes, and I hope that he will join me there.
Oopsie doopsie. So when he said, oh, I wish Durbin would have reached out to me, oh, my ass. Of course Durbin did reach out to him. This is remember, this is very similar to when Coburn had an amendment that Sherrod Brown wanted to be a part of. He said, you know what, I like your amendment. I'd like to join in. And he wouldn't return his call. And Brown tried 5 times. And then finally he's like, all right, look, I'm coming on the floor, and I'm telling you I want to be a co-sponsor of your amendment, whether you like it or you don't. And then they turn around and pretend they're butthurt over it. Oh, why didn't he reach out to me as a friend? And, you know, yesterday we did that story on the show, and if you noticed, I was a little skeptical that he actually meant, something bad to happen to Byrd or whoever, right? But after having watched that, I think he did. First of all, I was just hoping that their alarm clock didn't work. That's all you got? That's a terrible excuse. That's not what you meant. Because then their alarm clocks, first of all, their alarm clocks aren't working? Come on, that's ridiculous. But you're going to ask people to pray for that? And then if their alarm clocks don't work, eventually somebody wakes them up and they come and vote anyway. Now, that's a terrible excuse. Makes me think he did mean bad things about Byrd. And then he was nervous and stammering the whole time. He said, and then, you don't come out here and blast your friend on the floor. I mean, they blasted me. They blasted me. Why are you blasting me? Right? And I'm like, well, that sounds like you're really defensive. So now I'm come to the conclusion, you know what? I think he did wish ill on at least some senator, and presumably Byrd, because he's in the worst shape. Always classy, these Republicans. And then I like his defense of, well, I'm a doctor. As a doctor, I would never want any harm to anyone. Let's all pray together that their alarm clocks don't work. And that's why they can't show up. Come on. All right, so now Senator Barrasso is going to go on C-SPAN, and a caller is going to ask him about this. As I said, there's a question of whether the caller is serious or not, but in my mind, there is no question. Of course, the caller is kidding, but he does a great job with it. So let's check that out.
Republican line. Good morning. Abraham?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Doctor, our small teabag group here at Waycross, we got our vigil together and took Dr. Coburn's instructions and prayed real hard that Senator Byrd would either die or couldn't show up at the vote the other night. How hard did you pray? Because I see one of our members is missing this morning. Did it backfire on us? One of our members died. How hard did you pray, Senator? Did you pray hard enough?
Senator Barrasso, he was referring to Senator Inhofe, who was not part of the round of voting this morning.
The votes today, they needed 60 votes in favor of the bill. Senator Inhofe is opposed to the bill, and whether he was there or not, it didn't make any difference. There was no way that Jim Inhofe was going to vote for the bill, senator from Oklahoma. So that's why he wasn't there this morning.
Do you know where he was, Senator, why he wasn't able to make the vote this morning?
No, I don't know.
That was awesome. The reason it was awesome is, first, I love Barrasso's stare. Like stone cold. He's like, yeah, I'm not acknowledging this at all. Then they totally ignore the real question. And I love the caller, man. He was a hoot and a holler. He called himself Abraham. And he's like, did you pray? Did you pray, Senator? The bird couldn't make it. They ignore that part completely. They're like, oh, Inhofe. He asked about Inhofe. Not exactly. He mentioned because Inhofe couldn't make it the vote, did it backfire? And we actually wound up killing Inhofe rather than Bird with our prayers. Come on, that was a genius call. You really got to give it to the guy. That was a genius call. And it was, that's the thing about TV that drives me crazy. I think it drives everybody crazy. They love to smooth things over. No, there are no problems. There's no nothing. Unless the anchor just didn't understand what the hell the guy was talking about. But Barrasso understood. If you notice, he paused for a second, and then he continued, oh, Inhofe, I don't know anything about it. Right, Chair?
He thought about going there. He
Yeah.
said, no, there's nothing but trouble here. So he went on. But I've always thought this about Washington Journal on C-SPAN. They have the Republican line, the Democratic line, and the Independence line. You call in, and you identify yourself with whatever you are, whatever point of view you're coming with, and they put you on accordingly, I assume. I thought, well, how do they know that somebody's not actually a Republican, not actually a Democrat? I can call and say, yeah, I'm calling on the Republican line. Man, I can't stand that fascist Kenyan that we have in office. And they put me on, and then I can say whatever I want. I said, that has to happen all the time, doesn't it?
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. You're right. Mike Stark, the guy who covers Capitol Hill now and goes and chases after the senators and the congressmen, and then they run. You remember those videos we showed you? What he originally started doing and how he got a little famous at the time was he would call into conservative shows. And he knew the system, and he would work the system until he got on. And then he'd blast them, right? And Hannity and Limbaugh and all those guys, and he'd make points that they couldn't answer, right? Because Stark's a smart guy, man. He went to University of Virginia Law School. He knows what he's doing. And so he'd put on fake voices, fake names, and then he'd ask the question. They'd be like, oh, yeah, we know this guy. This guy, he's not allowed on our air. Well, what do you mean? Why don't you answer his question? So, yeah, it is possible to game the system. If you want, JR, we'll hang out one afternoon. Hello, this is Abraham. I'm calling from, where would I be calling from? Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't know. All right. We'd have some fun with it. Maybe we should do it as a segment. All right, guys, when we come back, the left attacks Obama. It's pretty good, strong attacks. So let's check that out. Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. All right, so let's start with the attacks against Obama, and then I'm going to get to that crazy story in North Carolina where this guy did insult that makes Joe Wilson look polite. All right, so now the liberals are not happy with what wound up happening with health care reform, no public option, but we do have a mandate that we buy from the private insurance companies that are the root of the problem in the first place. There's no Medicare buy-in, and Obama made it worse by coming out and saying, hey, he told the Washington Post, I never campaigned on the public option. I never campaigned on any of this stuff. And I dare anyone basically to find out if I violated anything I said in the campaign. Yeah, he shouldn't have done that. That was kind of a bad idea. So, of course, people are rolling up their sleeves and going to work. So first, let's go with Progressive Change Campaign Committee and see if Barack Obama really did deliver on his promises. Clip number 5.
Any plan I sign must include an insurance exchange, including a public option to increase competition and keep insurance companies honest.
If a mandate was the solution, we could try that to solve homelessness by mandating everybody buy a house. The reason they don't have a house is they don't have the money.
Oops.
The Progressive Change Campaign Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
All right, now they're running that ad in Washington, and they're running it in Wisconsin, too, because they're trying to get Feingold to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to agree to this bill unless you have a public option in it. That will really throw a monkey wrench into things and then hopefully renegotiate to the more of a progressive advantage, right? And they've already got $40,000 in ads that they've bought running that against Obama. So they're not playing. That's going on the air. And if they can raise more money, they're going to run it more against Obama. Now, let's be fair about a couple of things. The first clip was not from the campaign. It was from a couple of months ago. It was July of this year, right? But he did say clearly in that clip that any bill I must sign must have a public option, which he then did not deliver on. Now, the mandate stuff, you know, we did this a little bit yesterday, but those are tough points to counter when Obama made him on the campaign and he said, you know, you can't solve homelessness by telling everybody you're going to give them a house and then making them pay for it. It's the essence exactly what we've been saying on the show. I used the car analogy, I used the life insurance and the car insurance analogy. I used every analogy I could, apparently except the one Obama used, which was the house analogy. Now, look, I'm not an ideologue, and I know that every politician says things in the campaign that they're not going to be able to deliver on. In fact, if you remember during the debates, and who would remember this outside of me, but after we covered all the debates between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama during the primaries. And in one famous debate, they had 16-minute discussion of health care. And I came out of that and said, who cares? Now, why did I say that? I said, because it doesn't matter what his position or her position on health care is, because they're arguing over slight differences. And once they go to actually do health care, they're all going to compromise anyway, right? And they're going to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So it's not like okay, here is Barack Obama's position, now pass it. It was never going to be like that, and it wasn't going to be like that if Hillary Clinton had won. I said that at the time, and that's still true, right? And to be fair to Barack Obama, when he was in the campaign, he did mention the public option, but he did not emphasize it. And he did not go back to it over and over again as he did on the mandate issue. So I understand all that. But that's not really at the core of what bothers me about this. What bothers me was after the campaign, and he's going, first of all, the whole theme of the campaign was, I'm going to challenge the system. And then instead he negotiated with the system. And I got a lot more on that a little bit later in the show. And then, but particularly in this, once he started down the healthcare road, he pretended to be in favor of things that he had no intention of backing. And that borders on genuinely dishonest. That's an interesting choice. Genuinely dishonest. But it really is. And so I get that you're not going to deliver on all your campaign process, but there are bounds of reason on what you tell the American people and what you tell, corporate interests, et cetera, behind the scenes. That's what bothers me. So he says to us, oh, trust me, public option, totally. And then we have reports where he goes in with politicians or corporate interests and he says, oh, no, I'm just screwing with them. No, of course I'm not going to do the public option. In fact, I'll help you kill it. No, I can't have that. That's too much. Okay, so now Progressive Change Campaign Committee aren't the only ones. Fire Dog Leg also found him talking about mandates from when they were debating during the primaries as well. Let's give you that one too. Clip number 6.
Under any mandate, you're going to have problems with people who don't end up having health coverage. Massachusetts right now embarked on an experiment where they mandated coverage. And by the way, I want to congratulate Governor Schwarzenegger and the Speaker and others who've been trying to do this in California, but I know that those who have looked at it understand. You can mandate it, but there's still going to be people who can't afford it. And if they cannot afford it, then the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to fine them? Are you going to garnish their wages? Those are questions that Senator Clinton has not answered with respect to her plan, but I think we can anticipate that there would also be people potentially who are not covered and are actually hurt if they have a mandate imposed on them.
Yeah. And the reason I played that one for you is he's got to realize that if you're that on the record, which he obviously is, and we can play you 8 of those clips, right? that you shouldn't go and mouth off at the Washington Post saying, I delivered everything I promised in the campaign. I challenge you to go find something that I said in the campaign that we didn't deliver on in health care. Barack, you can't do that. That's crazy talk. I mean, that's like Gary Hart kind of talk. I challenge you to follow me around and see if you can find my mistress. Then he walks around the corner and puts his mistress on his lap. Mistress mandate, something like that. So now, Progressive Change Campaign Committee is also going after Russ Feingold. Man, they're not playing, man. Adam Green, Stephanie Taylor, etc. They bring some lead pipes and a couple of blowtorches. So now they're not doing ads, but they're doing robocalls. And they're not saying, oh, Feingold screwed us or anything. No, that's crazy talk. Nobody thinks that, right? But they're encouraging him through the robocalls where they're calling in Wisconsin, saying, hey, you know what? We need a hero to step up here and do what Senator Feingold said was necessary, which is to fight for the public option. So they're bringing everything they got, and I think it's over, but I love that they keep fighting on it. We need tough fighters like that, even in the midst of imminent defeat. I love that they're pushing forward. All right, now, there are fighters on the other side. They're a little more quizzical, if you ask me. Sarah Palin is in the news again on health care reform. Now, the media is hanging on every word that she Facebooks or tweets out. So we got another tweet. Why are we listening to the tweets of this nincompoop? Well, I know why, because 40% of the country thinks she would make a dandy president. It's unreal, man. It's unreal. So I think that number will be lower if she actually ran, because then we would have more scrutiny about her positions and what she said, et cetera. But it's still disheartening. A majority of Republicans are on her side. It's a total embarrassment to the Republican Party. Anyway, so here's what she tweeted out about the latest version of the Senate health care reform bill. Merged bill may be unrecognizable from what assumed was a done deal. Now, she's shortening things to get it into 140 characters, like the B is just the letter B. She's very cool. She's very 19 years old. But anyway, R, again, just letter R, are death panels back in? What's punishment for, of course, the letter 4, I'm sorry, the number 4, look at me, the number 4, what's punishment for not purchasing mandated health care? Okay. All right, whatever with the tweet, right? The bottom line is, are death panels back in? And the follow-up sentence is, what's punishment for not purchasing mandated health care? Is she suggesting that the punishment for not going with the mandate is not a fine, but a death sentence? I don't know what she's suggesting. I mean, I don't know what goes on in that tiny, tiny head of hers. I mean, well, how are the death panels back? And the media, like, they take this dumbass tweet and they take it seriously, like, oh, wait, are the death panels back? What does he mean? Oh, that's interesting. Now, to be fair, PolitiFact, which is nonpartisan, does the fact-checking, declared the death panels the lie of the year, okay? They were the most mischaracterized thing in the whole bill. But when she tweets this out, everybody's like, oh, death panels are back. How? Let's have a serious debate about this. You're having a serious debate with a 19-year-old, mentally, and I'm being kind here, who doesn't know anything about the policy. How does the mandated health care have anything to do with death panels? It's like, it's when you see, like, we should theoretically be happy that that's our opposition. But to me, it's so discouraging that a person with that degree of dishonesty and lack of knowledge about any of the issues is taken so seriously in this country. All right. Now, another thing about healthcare here, and then I'm going to go on to other things and come back to healthcare, because I want to really keep Obama's feet to the fire on what he said during the campaign and his big challenges about how you can't find any difference between what he said then and what he says now. Anyway, so you know the Ben Nelson stuff, where he got the Nebraska Compromise and wound up getting this great deal for his home state where they never have to chip in for Medicaid again, which is terrific. Now, first, let me give you a clip where he tries to explain it away. Maybe you could make sense of it. I couldn't. This makes no sense at all. Let's go to Nelson, clip number 9.
The underlying facts are that this was pursued initially as an opt-in or opt-out for all states. And while we weren't able to get in this legislation an actual opt-out or opt-in for a state-based decision, what we did get is at least a line, if you will, so that in the future, other states are going to be able to come forward and say, hey, either the federal government pays for that into the future, or the state will have the opportunity to decide not to continue that, so that we don't have an unfunded federal mandate. It's not a special deal for Nebraska. It is, in fact, an opportunity to get rid of an unfunded federal mandate for all the states. Let me repeat that. For all the states. There's nothing special about it, and it's fair. What we've done is we've drawn a line in the sand and said this is unacceptable, and it's unacceptable for all states as well.
That's just not true. That's not even remotely true. Let me repeat. This is for all states, except for the 49 that it doesn't apply to. Okay, there's a couple of different things. First, he's talking about opt-in and opt-out. That was about the public option. That's not even in the bill. He might be referring to something that happened with Medicaid, and there's a different provision in the bill where you can opt in or opt out, but that has nothing to do with the special Nebraska deal. And then when he gets to that special Nebraska deal, he says, oh, this is for all states, but that's not true. It's not for all states. I don't know. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
I was thinking he's saying he's setting a precedent for future states to
to
live up to their standard, because it's like it's an unfunded mandate and we should be fighting this. And Nebraska was just smart to fight it.
Yeah. Look, it's the weakest excuse I've seen in a long, long time. It literally says in the bill that Nebraska is the only one that it applies to. So if you think it should apply to everybody, well, why didn't you insist that it apply to everybody? Why wasn't the thing you pushed for? Now, remember, this is so that Nebraska does not have to chip into Medicaid, as the other states do. But, of course, what he doesn't mention, and no one else mentions, outside of very few couple of media reports on it, is that he also got an exemption or a tax break for insurance companies within Nebraska. So it's not just the state he helped out the insurance companies that are paying his bills. They've contributed $650,000 to him over the last 5 years, and this is payback. He got them about a $20 million tax break. Okay, and that does not apply to all the states. It doesn't apply to all the companies. It's just to the companies that contributed to Ben Nelson. So that speech was nothing but full of crap. All right, and finally, on that same issue, we've got 7 state prosecutors throughout the country now that are going to sue and try to get this overturned, this piece of the legislation at least, because they're saying, hey, this isn't fair. Why does Nebraska not get to contribute to Medicaid, but we have to? So, South Carolina, Texas, Alabama, Colorado, Michigan, North Dakota, and Washington. And shockingly enough, every one of those attorney generals are Republicans, and several of them, at least 3 of them, are running for governor. So I'm sure this isn't a political issue. They just thought, hey, let's be fair about this. Now, look, I'm torn on that because I think the provision is ridiculous. On the other hand, is it legal? I think almost certainly legal. That's what they do in every bill. All right, I'll give you this, you give me that, and it's called horse trading. And all of a sudden, of course, and do the Republicans do that? So, but now all of a sudden they're outraged by it. They can't believe that the Democrats would do that. So it's ridiculous. All right, look, what I've done is I've slightly run out of time for that crazy North Carolina story. But we're going to talk to Eleanor Cliff next. And then right afterwards, I'll do the North Carolina story because it's amazing. Okay, and that's the crazy Republican insult. So come right back, Young Turks.
One progressive talk show, don't you forget it. That's right. Politics.
Welcome to Young Turks. I am your host, Cenk Uygur. J.R. Jackson producing, Jesus Godoy directing on theyoungturks.com, where everybody's having fun. Now, I want to start with 2 things in this hour that one's crazy, okay, and the other one's really important. The second one is going to be about Barack Obama's campaign promises and what did he deliver on in terms of health care and what didn't he deliver on. We have the exact quotes, and we'll let you judge for yourself, okay, after we've presented the quotes that we picked. Keeping it fair and honest here on the Young Turks. But first, let's not forget how Republicans are still loathsome. So, and we have a local example here to illustrate the case for you. Now, first off, the issue of gay rights, of course, is all over the country, and Gay marriage is an issue that people have fought back and forth about. And then recently in Washington, Mayor Adrian Fenty signed legislation to legalize same-sex marriage. Okay, and then the Catholic Church flipped out over that, and they said they did something that was totally uncool by a lot of people. They said, "Oh yeah, well, if you're going to make us take employees or not discriminate against employees and other people that are working with us that are gay, well, then maybe we don't serve the poor." Aha! Keep it classy, Catholic Church. Okay, so now, don't get me wrong, that's a complicated issue because they're saying, hey, listen, I don't want you to tell me how to run my church and what I should accept and shouldn't accept in terms of employees or anything else. And I agree with them on that. But then other people turn around and say, hey, yeah, that's true, but then so why don't you stop taking money from the government and then you won't have that problem. That's also true, right? So now that's the conflict being played out, and it's not cool to negotiate by saying, all right, if you make me treat gays as equal when they're getting married, they don't have to marry them in church or anything. Just if they're working on a government program, then they can't discriminate. Okay? They say, and to hold poor people hostage and say, well, then I won't help the poor at all. To say it's unchristian is a mild or dramatic, I should say, understatement. All right, so that's what's happening in Washington. Now let's go to another local story. It's in North Carolina, in Mecklenburg County. Well, they had a debate about domestic partnership benefits for county workers. If they're in same-sex relationships, are they going to get the same benefits as, straight couples? And it was a debate. The Democrats wound up winning because they had more people on the board. They won 6-3. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is what happened during the debate. Commissioner Wilma Leak is a Democrat, and she came out and told this, gut-wrenching story, emotional story about her own son. And she said that her son got AIDS and died in 1993, and how she was torn up about that, etc. And as she was saying that, the Republican commissioner, Bill James, leaned in and said, your son was a homo? Really? Oh, keep it classy. Bill James, way to go. Your son was a homo. Really? She responded by saying, you're going to make me hurt you. Don't do that to me. Don't talk about my son. Okay. I mean, the kid died from AIDS, right? And she's telling this emotional story, and there's this idiot calling the son a homo, right? All right, look, it could have been a mix-up. He didn't mean to say it that way, etc. In fact, afterwards he said, look, I was in the middle of saying homosexual, and it just came out as homo, right? All right, well, if he said that, then it's not an issue. It's a local thing that happened there. He misspoke. All right, we move on, right? But no, of course he had to go on radio, on a conservative show, I take it, a local radio station, WBT AM. And when asked about it, he said, quote, to Keith Larson, quote, look, I don't care if I said homo. I don't think it changes the reality of it. Whether I said, is he a homo really, or is he a homosexual really? I'm okay with either one of those. Okay, well, then you're an ass. I mean, does it matter what we call people? Of course it matters. Look, I don't want to go on and on about, what you call this, but does it matter if you call somebody black or you call them the N-word? Of course it matters. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's not just that you call them that, it's the time that you chose to do it. I mean, don't you have any humanity? That's my question, right? This woman's telling you about her son died. And now it's almost like he's proud of it. Like, oh, yeah, I won't be politically correct. I'll rub it in her face. Well, then you're an ass. But it gets worse, of course. He said that Wilma is a religious hypocrite because her late husband was a bishop in the AME Zion Church, and that has historically opposed homosexuality. And I guess she's a hypocrite for loving her son. All right, now, if you think that this Bill James character is just bad in regard to homosexuals, wait till you get a load of them with blacks. So now we go back to 2004. Again, you wouldn't bring this up, except he's making a big deal out of it and said, yeah, homo, yeah, I call him a hoa, so what, right? Here's what he said about the, quote, urban black community. They live in a, quote, moral sewer with parents who lack the desire to act properly. The whole urban black community. Swell guy you are. And then when people were like, come on, man, bounds for reason. Aren't you going to apologize to her in any way? Going back to the issue with Will Malik, he said, yeah, look, I'm sorry if the question, you took it the wrong way. Classy, man, classy. And you wonder why you've lost large chunks of the population, Republican Party. I mean, you got guys like this representing you. You got to run them out of the party. If you don't, that means you're backing him up. And if you're backing him up, how are you going to get a black guy to vote for you when you said that he lives in a moral sewer and you insulted his parents? How are you going to get gay people to vote for you if you say that, they're all homos, and like when you hear a gut-wrenching story about how some kid died, you go, oh yeah, really, he was a homo? Well, obviously you're not going to get these people to vote for you, and you're not going to get a lot of younger Americans who believe that America is about all of us and not, just, your particular ethnicity. America's changed. These guys don't realize it. People under 40, they don't think like this. Look, that's a gross generalization, but overall, yes. I mean, look at the numbers, look at the statistics, look at the polling, right? You're not going to win people under 40 by saying that black people live in a moral sewer and calling gay people homos as, they're telling stories about how they died. No. So look, hey, Republican Party, if this is what you're for, and you think Bill James is heroic for standing up and not being politically correct, have at it, Hoss. But that's not what this country's about, and you're going to continue to lose elections that way. Now, if it was just the Republicans running against Democrats, and Democrats actually did what they said, I think they'd clean house. The problem is the Democrats, they still are under the old paradigm of appease the system, play corporate politics, raise money, and if you raise money, you won't have any problems. And they're going to crush the Republicans by outraising them and appealing to corporate interests better than the Republicans did. Well, then that disillusions us, not as much as the Republicans. As you can see, the Republicans always find a way to make it worse, right? But I believe it was one of our listeners who sent me an email on this. It's a perfect description. It breaks it down to the corporatists, which is the Republicans and the Democrats, versus progressives. And there are some progressives in the Senate, obviously Sanders and Feingold, et cetera, and some in the House, no question about it. But that's the real fight here. It's not between Republicans and Democrats. They're having a fight to who can suck up to corporate America more, get more money so they can use it for their campaign financing. But as I've said, now a million times, we're on to you, and you're slow to recognize that fact. I think that Democratic Party might begin to recognize that fact in 2010. See how it goes. Now, as to the issue of, was Barack Obama honest when he was campaigning in 2008 when he said he was going to take on the status quo? Did he really mean it or not? Well, he opened up that issue again because in an interview with the Washington Post, Barack Obama said, look, you can match up the Senate health care bill with what I said during the campaign, and it matches up perfectly. And I challenge anyone to find any difference. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. So we're about to go to work on them. I'm going to give you quotes on all the different areas of healthcare, what Obama said in the campaign, and what actually wound up happening. And all I'm doing is quoting candidate Obama here. So here's what he said to CNN on Super Tuesday in the primaries about mandates. If a mandate was a solution, we could try to solve homelessness by mandating everybody buy a house. The reason they don't have a house is that they don't have the money. So our focus has been on reducing costs, making it available. I'm confident that if people have a chance to buy high-quality health care that is affordable, they will do so, and that's what our plan does, and nobody disputes that. All right, so there he is, very clear. Now, we've run that clip before where he says mandates are not the answer. Now, in the Senate bill, there's mandates, and there's no public option, so you have to buy that. You're mandated to buy from private insurance. Okay, so it's even worse than what he fought against during the campaign. All right, now how about the excise tax? He was against, that's the tax against higher insurances, like the insurance where you pay more. They say, all right, now we're going to tax that. But during the campaign, Obama said no. Here's his quote about John McCain, who proposed it during the campaign. He gives you a tax credit with one hand, but he raises your taxes with the other. Many employers will drop their health care plans altogether. So he's saying if you do an excise tax on the best health insurance plans, many employers will drop the plan altogether. Now he says, who cares? We're doing an excise tax. Okay. So far, 2 for 2 on whether he's consistent. No. All right. Now we go to Medicare Part D. Okay. And this is Bush passed a law saying you cannot negotiate with drug companies, the government cannot, to lower prices for Americans, which is mental. I couldn't believe it happened when it happened. And of course, Obama was against it. Here's his quote. Congress specifically exempted Medicare from being able to negotiate for the cheapest available price, and that was a profound mistake. All right, can you guess what's going to happen here? Of course, in the Senate bill, they are not allowed to negotiate with drug companies. So that profound mistake repeated by Barack Obama. 3 for 3. Let's go to point number 4 on challenging the system. What did Obama promise? We talked to Eleanor Clift earlier, and she said, he didn't really promise to challenge the system. Really? Let's read this quote. We will break the stranglehold that a few drug and insurance companies have on the healthcare market. It's become clear that some of these companies are dramatically overcharging Americans for what they offer. We're not going to get change unless we can overcome the resistance the drug companies, the insurance companies, the HMOs, those who are making a major profit from the system currently. He's going to take them all on! When he got in office and he started the healthcare fight, what he began with was inviting all those guys into his office and saying, come on, let's set up a system where you get to keep the system as it is, but I tweak it a little bit. He promised dramatic change, taking all those guys on, and he didn't. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Now, let's go to drug importation. Well, what was Obama for during the campaign? Quote, and then we'll tell the pharmaceutical companies, thanks but no thanks for overpriced drugs. Drugs that cost twice as much here as they do in Europe and Canada and Mexico. We'll let Medicare negotiate for lower prices. We'll allow the same reimportation of low-cost drugs from countries like Canada. When he got into office, this specific bill amendment was proposed to the health care reform bill by Byron Dorgan in the Senate, and Barack Obama actively campaigned to kill it and said, no, I struck a deal with these drug companies, and that was not part of the deal, so no, we will not allow drug importation. So get a load of how awesome a shape the drug companies are in. They gave up $80 billion. That was part of the deal. So, hey, we got something. They immediately raised prices. We did a long article about this earlier in the show. They raised prices by 9% instantly within a year. So then that $80 billion got replaced by $150 billion over the next 10 years in price rate hikes. So it was a joke, okay? They just took it from one pocket and put it in another pocket. And then they got these great deals from Obama where we can't do drug importation. That would save another $100 billion over the next 10 years, okay? And we can't negotiate with them as the government to lower prices. Boy, he really challenged them. And then finally, on the lobbyists, here is candidate Obama. The pharmaceutical industry wrote in to the prescription drug plan that Medicare could not negotiate with drug companies. And you know what? The chairman of the committee who pushed the law through went to work for the pharmaceutical industry making $2 million a year. That's an example of the same old game playing in Washington. You know, I don't want to learn how to play the game better. I want to put an end to the game playing. Well, that is the killer quote, because that is exactly what he's done, which is try to play the game a little better, not challenge the game at all. Now, you want to hear the perfect example of that? That guy he's referring to is Billy Tauzin. He then became the head of the lobby for pharma, big pharma, that's the drug companies. That's where he got the $2 million that Obama was referring to in the campaign per year, right? Went to the White House on a number of occasions. He's the one that agreed to the deal with Obama that they not negotiate drug prices, not allow drug importation, and we believe, and this is based on other things, the other two are 100%, that's on the record. And the third one is likely that Obama would not push for the public option. So he did exactly what he said he wasn't going to do during the campaign. So don't tell me that Obama didn't break campaign promises. Oh, and he only promised during the campaign that he was going to tweak things and not that he was going to actually challenge the system. That is not what he said in the campaign. In these quotes, 6 for 6. Violated every one of those promises. Now, I want to be clear to everybody, right? I'm not a guy who's a purist, who demands perfection. I get that, hey, you know what? He switched his mind on mandates. I said during the campaign he probably would. I said he would switch probably on a number of these positions, and when you get into negotiations, you've got to. You can't be like, no, that's what I promised on the campaign, I'm going to deliver 100% of it. Nobody can deliver that, right? But there's a difference between, hey, look, I tweaked this and I compromised on that, and I was lying to you. I wasn't really going to challenge these guys. The first thing I was going to do when I came to the White House was invite them in and make deals with them. And make deals so they make more money. That's why all their stock prices are going up, up, and up, up, because they love these deals. If at the end we got a good deal and we got a public option and I could see us getting to a better road, I say, you know what, man, that was a lot of compromises and it didn't seem like he was really delivering on what he said in the campaign, but we wound up with something very good. Well, I don't think so. I think we wound up with something very middling, and he clearly violated the core of his campaign promise to challenge the system, not to tweak it. And that's the core of our problem with what President Obama has done. All right, Young Turks.